Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers are 6-2. Just how much credit does GM Rob Pelinka deserve? We'll discuss next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always free, never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 37,000 subscribers are all hanging out, talking to each other, talking to us, and Andy, just trying to diagnose how the Lakers got to be 6-2, despite playing no games with LeBron James and only half their games with Luka Doncic, and missing Gabe Vincent and Jackson Hayes been out of the lineup. I mean, like, we're short some dudes around here, Andy, and yet the Lakers have opened quite strong. How much credit does Rob Pelinka deserve for that start? We'll get to that question in a moment. We'll talk about tonight's game against the San Antonio Spurs.
How much credit does JJ Redick deserve, for that matter?
We can add him in there too. How much does Linda Rambis deserve? Everyone, both Ramby. We'll get
their credit is also a package deal.
We'll get you ready for the Spurs game and stuff to look for. Tell you who's going to play in it, which is obviously important. But before we do all those things, we need to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Maybe we'll break down the exacts in terms of like the matchup and what we're looking for in a really fun marquee game. But just to get the housekeeping out of the way, Luka is listed as probable in this game.
No, he's not. He is listed
I thought he was probable.
No, Luka is not listed as anything. He's not on the injury report.
That's even better.
Jackson Hayes, who turned his ankle in the win against Portland, he is listed as probable. Austin Reeves is listed as questionable with the groin thing. The other guys who have not been playing will continue not playing.
I, like many people, often get Luka and Jackson Hayes confused. Easy mistake to make. So that'll be the cast for the game against San Antonio. Hopefully Austin can play, but the Lakers obviously need to make sure that he is healthy. With a groin problem, you do not want to turn a 2-game or a 3-game thing into a 10 or a 12-game thing that a guy is struggling with for a couple months. So keep an eye on that. But let's start with this question, Andy, because the Lakers are 6-2. On Tuesday's show, we talked about Nick Smith Jr. and we talked about DeAndre Ayton, and we talked about Bronny, and we talked about Jake LaRavia, who has gotten a lot of minutes over the course of these first 8 games. Those are guys who are on the team who are not stars, who were put together, on this roster was put together by Rob Pelinka, being coached up by JJ Redick. When you look at the infrastructure, like the brain trust of this team, 8 games into the season, what are you thinking?
It's really interesting in thinking about where we are now and when the offseason began. One of the things that I noted was how Rob Pelinka said that he thought the offseason that we just experienced was going to be very active, and that the Lakers were going to be in the middle of it all. And I said at the time, that felt to me like Rob very much actively putting himself out there and potentially on the hook if things did not turn out to fan satisfaction, because A, you're risking overpromising and under-delivering, but B, you're risking doing that while not exactly steeped with a ton of assets that teams around the league are tripping over themselves to get. And also, you're not dealing with much in the way of cap space. So Rob was making very bold declarations without necessarily having that many avenues for, as Rob likes to talk about, optionality. And then things seemed to be getting off to an ominous start when DFS ended up going to Houston. And that felt
rather crankily, I might add.
Right, rather crankily. And there had been reports about the negotiations between the Lakers and Team DFS breaking down, being kind of acrimonious. Houston then gives DFS what initially looked like a 4-year deal, turned out to be kind of a fake 4-year deal. But nonetheless, it made the Lakers look like they were unwilling to commit to anything past a year or two, which began the whole 2027 plan and hysteria, yada, yada, yada. But it began looking like, okay, Rob may have already painted himself into a corner like 2 days into the offseason. Then we end up hearing about Jake LaRavia, who we both thought was a nice signing, but he's not.
I like that.
We both liked it, but he's also not somebody that I think a lot of fans were necessarily familiar with. Then the DeAndre Ayton thing happens, and that is Rob Pelinka, all likelihood, leveraging the relationship with Luka Doncic's agent, Bill Duffy, getting a heads up. Hey, before you go trade assets that you don't have a lot of for someone like Nick Claxton in Brooklyn, my guy is about to end up getting bought out.
Certainly possible.
I would be stunned if it happened any other way, because frankly, it rolled out too neatly to me to have happened any other way. And then, the Jake LaRavia thing is also, I think, in a lot of ways, leveraging the relationship with Aaron Riley, the agent that he shares with Austin Reeves. Rob Pelinka ends up, I think, paying good attention to the buyout market after Ayton, gets wind of what's going on with Marcus Smart. And without necessarily bringing in a lot of big names at their peak, Ayton and Smart are both pretty known quantities, known commodities, but they're seen at kind of a low point in their career. And LaRavia, without spending anything more than a full mid-level on Ayton and LaRavia combined and Marcus Smart, the biannual, they managed to address a lot of needs on the roster while retaining all the assets that they have, however valuable you think that they are. And what we are seeing over these 8 games is, for a guy that you and I think have very rightly criticized for not being detail-oriented enough, it feels like Rob Pelinka actually paid attention to the details in the guys that he brought in.
I agree with a lot of that. I think I look at the buyout market in a couple different ways. I don't think Pelinka going, when he was talking the talk, as you were, getting at before about, we're going to be active, we're going to be this, like, I don't think he had in his mind that many prominent players were going to be bought out.
Oh, no, I don't think so either.
And so I think that was talk to get the Lakers from a PR standpoint from point A to point B. And as Rob often does, figure out a new thing to say when we get to point B if things don't work out. And so, the center market, for example, they were priced out of basically everything. Like everything. Like, guys we were talking about before, like, what about Brook Lopez as a fuzzy backup? Like, do you really want Brook Lopez to be your starter? I don't know if that works. Like, he was too expensive. And, Luke Cornett, too expensive. Like, there were a lot of guys that, the Lakers might have been interested in on a mid-level or something like that. They were priced out of that space. They got really lucky that Ayton was available. They got really lucky that Marcus Smart was available. That said, they got both of those guys. And so, you talk about like it being too neat. Like, there was no other.
Yes, I mean, I in my opinion, real quick, because I think it matters. I don't think Brook Lopez is a good fit for what they want. So
I don't either.
Right. But to me, the point that I'm making is, I guess there can be a fine line between priced out versus not the guy you'd want anyway.
But either way, the point is, even if they liked him, they couldn't have afforded him anyway. There were doesn't
matter if they don't like him, though.
But every name center that was out there that was even tangentially attached to the Lakers, whether you were willing to settle for, we need a body, like we don't have players, we need somebody who can fill that spot. We don't have the luxury of looking for the guy that's best suited to what we do. They didn't have that. Like, none of those guys were available. So regardless of the reason, I agree with you. I don't know how much interest there actually was in Lopez. He was a guy who was connected to Lakers. Every center was connected to Lakers.
Every player is connected,
particularly
to the Lakers.
Centers. Ayton, the only natural destination for DeAndre Ayton, there are a couple out there, but like by far, the most natural, the best opportunity, regardless of who the guy's agent was the Lakers. I mean, there's just,
Absolutely.
it's impossible, I think, to argue otherwise. So in that sense, I don't know how much, GMing Rob was doing, or, using his connections, using his relationships and all that kind of stuff. But this is the flip side of this is something I want to discuss after the break, because I'm not sure how much some of this stuff matters. We'll ask that question next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And even if you miss the start of a game or want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team keeps making a late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play with FanDuel. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Locked on Lakers is also brought to you by Rougiette. Let's be real, Andy. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's stress. I'm tired. Happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rougiette comes in. It offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Makes it easy to get started, Rougiette does. You just connect with a board-certified doctor, 100% online, no awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments, and if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. It's a process that's fast, simple, and private, all the things that you want in this sort of deal. And it's all handled by real doctors. It's about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. Visit Rougiette.com, R-U-G, I almost said G, RUGIET.com/LockedOnNBA to get 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNBA. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnNBA so they know we sent you. Stop making Rougiette, stop making excuses, and start making moves. So here's what I think here. I think two things can be true at once. It's a little yes and no, as our friend Darius Soriano from Lakers Film Room podcast might say. I think Rob got lucky to some degree that the buyout market turned out to be more robust in ways that I think people weren't anticipating going into the offseason.
I think more with Smart probably than DeAndre Ayton, because he doesn't have the direct agent pipeline. The Ayton thing, a buyout of that size, typically takes a while to work out. Again, I would be stunned if Rob was not in the loop for that for a while.
Maybe that was percolating that they might be able, that it might happen or whatever, but it wasn't like widely reported at the end of the season before free agency started and all this stuff that, the DeAndre Ayton can get bought out by the Blazers. Like that was not.
Well, that doesn't mean that Rob wasn't aware that it could be a possibility,
sure.
or that more importantly, Bill Duffy's client would.
But it also doesn't mean that. But my point is, it also I don't know, and so I'm not totally inclined to give him credit for having like this scoop sort of advanced information that this was coming, and that's why they sat back and did nothing, whether with trades or with the free agent market. Again, they did nothing, in my opinion, because there was nothing they could do. Sure. They couldn't make a trade. There weren't free agent centers that they could go out and sign. And so that's why they did nothing. That said, when DeAndre Ayton became available, Lakers made the pitch. Luka went out and made the call. Like they did everything they needed to do to get the guy. When Marcus Smart became available, they got him. And so you're lucky in the sense that these unexpected players were available for money that you never would have been able to get them at. And so that's luck to me. But it's also good that they got him. LaRavia was a really good signing. That's not luck. That's them identifying the player that they want and going to get that guy. Like, I think that's really smart. Like, they made a conscious decision when they let DFS go, when they said, Dorian Finney-Smith, wasn't going to be on the team anymore. Like, they used that money quickly, in part to go get Jake LaRavia. Like, they knew they wanted him. And like, that one, I'm giving them a lot of credit for. And the fit with LaRavia in terms of the skill set of a guy who can be a secondary ball mover in the front court is really important. Is identifying ways to use him, like where he could be used effectively defensively in ways that are kind of connective and allow different lineups to be played. I give them a lot of credit for identifying LaRavia as the type of talent at 23 too, that they could really use.
I mean, look, I can only speak for me in the way I'm thinking about this in terms of how much credit does Rob get. I'm not talking so much about the GMing work in terms of the labor and sweat, like we've talked about before. The Anthony Davis trade was among, I mean, you'll read some of the reporting or like the book by the LeBron book that just came out about the LeBron era, and Yaron Weitzman, who just put out this book about how in some respects the AD trade may have been complicated simply because Rob Pelinka was very new on the job and there was a lot he did not know and some details that were initially glossed over and he had to scramble to fix. But the actual trade for Anthony Davis was in and of itself not complicated. Certainly the identifying of the talent.
No,
it goes on Rob.
You say we want Anthony Davis.
Right.
He wants to come here, and you add stuff until the answer is yes.
But the point being, it goes on Rob's ledger.
Sure.
When I say that this has been good work by Rob Pelinka, whether you think that he got lucky on a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10, a 3, a 10, I honestly don't care. I'm judging just the people that were brought in for the amount of resources or lack thereof that he actually had. And then what really matters most to me, the ability to fill specific needs, in particular in ways that I don't think Rob has always, frankly, paid enough attention to. And like the identifying of a Jake LaRavia, the understanding the specific ways that, Marcus Smart can help this team, not just on both sides of the ball, but in terms of locker room presence.
Sure. Although I think that stuff, I don't think that required a lot of digging. I mean,
but
it's pretty self-evident.
Again, I'm not asking Rob to reinvent the wheel. I'm talking about the work that he.
This is the other half of that. When I asked, like, does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, James Bell's also pointing out Austin Reeves recruited the bleep out of Jake LaRavia. This may have been Austin's brainchild and not even Rob Pelinka's.
I think it was probably. I mean, these things often tend to be kind of a group effort. Like, here's who we want. You know the guy. Help us out. Like, we want to go get this guy where he's on our radar. We'd like to sign him. Can you help us? Like you mentioned, the common agents and the players and stuff like that. Where I think it matters is whether or not, like, it's you can give Rob a good grade for this year while reserving judgment as to whether or not he's grown into quote unquote like an elite GM or something.
I did not even
that's my point, is like, you can say he did a really good job this year, but not necessarily use that as evidence to say, oh, like, we got a front office that cooks. Like,
I'm not
the former, but I'm not willing to go to the latter.
I'm not suggesting that he get yet another extension. The ink's just dry on the new one.
Give him like another 5 on top of the 5.
Right. All I said was I think he did really good work this offseason, considering
I'm
lack of optionality.
I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm not saying that you did. I'm just saying that for me, this is how I look at this question of how much credit does he deserve. I think he deserves a lot of credit for this roster. I think JJ Redick has done a fantastic job identifying ways to use players a little bit more in more calculated ways. They seem to be, especially defensively, finding the right ways to deploy their players, having a real center to make it so they're not ultra switchy all the time. They can do that when they want to, rather than always feeling like they have to. That makes a big difference, I think. But there's some more clever stuff that seems like it's going on. offensively, but it does help. Like you swap out somebody like Laravia for DFS. Jake he's not the defender, I guess, that, by at least by reputation that DFS is, but he's a far more versatile offensive player.
Yeah.
So you can do more with him.
And the defense is not suffer. I mean, in all honesty, DFS wouldn't be playing right now because he's recovering from offseason ankle surgery, but we were starting to see some limit. As much as DFS was effective with the defense last year and played a big role in that surge that it had that unfortunately, I think, ran out of juice for a variety of reasons during the playoffs, we were starting to see signs of a physical decline, the foot speed issue, things like that. Moving forward, I think if nothing else, there is more upside possibilities for Laravia defensively with this team than there would have been with DFS. They do a lot of similar things, and even if you think DFS is still the better on-ball defender,
Probably
I don't know. He
One
probably
thing
is, but
poorly.
But I don't know if the gap is necessarily huge at this stage of DFS's career, certainly post ankle surgery.
Right. And the other thing to remember too is DFS, you'd be signing him, getting relatively deep into his 30s. Jake Laravia is younger than Dalton Connect.
Right.
And so, you have a chance to get significantly younger with a guy on a 2-year contract with no options. And then you have his early bird rights. Like that identification of talent was good work. Like that is unequivocal. People heard the hedges with, okay, Ayton, we'll see how much credit, not credit, whatever. It's a great signing. It's also, I think, kind of like, I'm not putting any of that in front of Laravia. I think it is just a straight up excellent signing. Let's get you ready for San Antonio. Plus, I think there is some stuff that came out of these first 8 games that's going to serve the Lakers well, especially since they've won games without their stars. We'll talk about it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Gusto. Let's be real. Nobody starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets, except antisocial weirdos, I guess. And if that's your thing, enjoy. But for the normal people out there, that's where Gusto comes in.
Skip the rest of this read.
Yeah, but for the normal people out there, that's where Gusto comes in to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. And knowing you can reach certified HR experts anytime gives you real peace of mind. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/lockedonnba and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right. 3 months of free. 3 months of free. Yeah, that's right. Of free payroll at gusto.com/lockedonnba. One more time. That's right. That's Gusto. Gusto.com/lockedonnba.
All right. So, let's do the Spurs thing because this other stuff will hold. But I am this is a game that I hope Austin plays, mostly because I want to see like the fullest versions of these teams. The Spurs did get their first bit of, I guess, injury bad news that they didn't start the preseason with.
I was going to say,
De'Aaron Fox hasn't played yet.
Right.
But they won their first 5 games without Fox, and they knew he wasn't going to be ready coming into the start of the season. But Dylan Harper is now going to be out for a little while. He had played really well, especially for a rookie, and all that kind of stuff was giving them a lot more than they expected. But Wemby's been spectacular. Castle's been spectacular. Devin Vassell's played this roster is sort of making the leap, it seems. And again, they're going to get the Aaron Fox back relatively soon.
In the meantime, though, we definitely know Luka's going to play. We definitely know Wemby's going to play. Depending on Austin's health, Luka may have a certain amount of responsibility on his back. We know Wemby already is going to have a certain amount of responsibility on his back. So you've got two of the biggest stars in the league. I realize they're not literally going mano-a-mano, but you get to see a showcase of just supreme talent having to some degree, carry their team through some adversity and absences.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big things that jumped out at me, though, thinking about this matchup is just how are the Lakers going to score? Because they've been third in the league, they're at least as we speak right now, third in the league for points in the paint. Not surprisingly, with Wemby as the back line, Spurs give up the second fewest points in the paint in the league. They've got the second best restricted area defense, third best paint non-restricted area defense. So, like, if the paint is closed off for the Lakers, where do they go from there? Do they go to the mid-range? They have been the number one team in the league for field goal percentage, both 5 through 9 feet, then 10 through 14 feet. They've been number one paint points non-restricted, but like even 15 through 19 feet, they're top 10. They are considered, if you look at the overall mid-range, the best mid-range shooting team in the league. However, the Spurs guard the mid-range in some of those spots I named, 5 through 9, 10 through 14, reasonably well. Overall, for the mid-range, they're 17th, but they also have the best opposing field goal percentage when you take volume into account. Like, no defense holds more mid-range attempts to a lower percentage than the Spurs. Like, there are other teams in the general vicinity of the ratio of high volume to low percentage, but nobody's the best. I am guessing a lot of teams are taking middies against the Spurs because, again, the whole Wemby is
but I also think like the percentages can be like we were talking about this earlier in the day. Like, I didn't have a chance to look up the numbers, but like the farther away you are from the basket, and Wemby, in theory, the arc of your shot and this, that, but if you're in mid range and Wemby is closing, like, you have to basically throw the ball into the rafters straight up and have it come straight down to have your shot land anywhere near the basket. So, I mean, I think like those types of shots get really tricky, and it's not.
Oh, for sure. I just meant, I think a lot of them get taken against the Spurs just because people stay away from the paint.
Well, they stay away from the basket, but I also wonder if those shots, I'm not disputing the numbers. I'm saying even if you take a lot of mid-range shots, as the Lakers do with guys like Rui, DeAndre Ayton is a strong mid-range player, as we've seen. Like, I don't know how much easier those, like, I wonder if the Spurs and Wemby become sort of uniquely difficult to do anything against, but particularly like stuff like that. Just like, what's the angle you have to take? You can't take that shot. But it's not, what makes them defensively quite good is, it's obviously starts with Wemby, but you have athletes all over the place. And, Keldon Johnson is a really active defender, and Castle can really move. And, Vassell can move. And like, they just got a lot of dudes who are athletic and cover a lot of ground. And that's tough. But you got a guy averaging 4.7 blocks a game. That is what they call a defensive anchor.
Yeah. In the meantime, too, if they can manage to somehow get Wemby into any kind of foul trouble, Luke Cornett is out for this game. So the back line behind Wembanyama might be a bit thin and maybe could be vulnerable if they
can. Bismack Biyombo has really been playing.
Right. And I remember granted, this was early in Wemby's time as a pro, and, which was, relatively speaking, Wemby
2 years ago.
Well, 2 years ago, and I was going to say Wemby at his suckiest, when he was merely like an alien as opposed to a what the bleep alien that he is now. There were a couple times where AD got Wemby into foul trouble. And they had some success with that. AD and Ayton are very different offensive players, so I don't know if DeAndre is successful.
I don't love this. This is not a great matchup for Ayton because he, unless he goes against certain tendencies, he is not a guy who, puts the ball on the floor and can, physically go into somebody like Wemby. He's not doing that. Like, we talked about his game on Monday night. Like, did he have a free throw in that game? I think he had one, two, maybe
two,
but he
had two.
Yeah. So it's like, he isn't somebody who's going to drive and draw that contact in ways. Wemby can stay off of Ayton almost anywhere on the floor. You would need DeAndre to kind of get down in the post and see with you, or try to get those fouls in a different way. Luka coming into the paint, Laravia coming into the paint, AR obviously if he plays, guys like that, trying to draw it. So it's not just like that center versus center matchup. I think the Lakers are more likely, just based on, like you say, who the center is. Ayton and Davis are different guys, very different guys, more likely to be able to draw fouls on Wemby with wings and guards than they are with their center.
Mr. TD in the chat brings up something that was also on my list of notable factors with this game. Wemby struggled versus the Suns. Maybe they can learn something from them. I did not see the game, so I can't speak to what the Lakers can or can't learn from Wemby's struggle against the Suns. He had just 9 points in that loss. It was also, though, the first time Wemby's been held to single digits since October 30th of 2024. And I think like the fourth time that he's been held to single digits in a regular season game in his career. I have a feeling he's going to come out kind of pissed off, which is not great for the Lakers.
No, but it was a legitimately off game for Wemby. What 9 rebounds for a normal person isn't terrible, but for Wemby, it's well below his average. So, kudos to the Suns for stopping the juggernaut. Phoenix 3-5, man.
Not today, Satan says, just do what Phoenix, in adding details about what Phoenix did, just do what Phoenix did to Wemby. Ayton primary and small guy coming to double. Wemby having a hard time when he puts the ball down.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable strategy there. So, all right, we'll see what happens. We'll obviously be joining you after the game. Plenty to keep talking about over the course of this week, and things still looking up in a big way for the Lakers. Locked On Lakers on YouTube, as we're over 37,000 subscribers to the channel. All hang out. We will see everybody after the game.